Hi, I'm Sarah Compton-Bishop. I'm Chair of the Board of NHS Highland, and I'm doing this short video today to tell you about our latest public board meeting that we had on Tuesday the 27th. So our public board meetings are recorded, so they get put up on the website for people to watch, but I wanted to draw out a few highlights, maybe for those of you who don't have time to watch the whole thing. So we did all of our usual business, so we always look at what our governance committees have been working on and take assurance from the scrutiny work that they've been doing. That's really, really helpful. We look at minutes of those committees and sign those off. We have an action plan we look at to make sure that things are moving along. But there were 4 key things that I wanted to pull out in this video that I think were really significant at our May board meeting. So first of all, we looked at, well, it's 2 items, but they're closely linked. So we looked at our draft ADP, so that is annual delivery plan, and also our draft budget for this year. So I'll talk about the annual delivery plan first of all. So every year we have to create an ADP. It is essentially us laying out what activity we think we will deliver over the course of a year. It's our contract with the Scottish Government where we say, this is what we're going to do. And it's massive. It spans our whole organisation, all of our services, all of our geography, the Highland Council area, Argyll and Bute, everything. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty chunky document. But it's really, really important because it's made up of lots of different factors. So it factors in areas of focus that are influenced by Scottish Government, so things that Scottish Government need us to do better on, the targets that they set for us. It's based on what we know we can deliver. So we look at our workforce, we look at our capacity, we look at the pathways and services we have and what we can do with that. So there's a bit about, what we know we can deliver. And the third element is around financial resources. So we know we have X amount of money and we know these things cost this much. So how much can we deliver in that financial envelope? So it's a huge piece of work. It takes a long time to develop the ADP and we have lots of people working on it. We took it through the board on Tuesday as a draft plan, and it's draft because we haven't yet had the final feedback and the final sign-off from the Scottish Government. So it hasn't been approved by Scottish Government yet, but it was really important for us to discuss it as a board because it is a significant document. It is our commitment to what we want to deliver. It influences what we then look at through the year in terms of our data and our metrics and how we hold ourselves to account. So we had a really interesting conversation around that. And although we haven't had the final sign-off from Scottish Government, we are in constant dialogue with the teams in Scottish Government about it. And we've been getting positive feedback on it so far. So we're feeling quite confident about the, how solid the plan is. And we had a great discussion about it. And once it has had that final feedback from the Scottish Government, we'll take it through the board for final approval. And linked to that was the draft budget for this year. As you can imagine, really, really, really challenging. We've been set some very ambitious financial targets by the Scottish Government, which we are working up a plan to tell them how we're going to achieve that. It's really tricky. Again, we have to be realistic about what we can achieve, but we do need to be ambitious and we need to find the savings that's been asked of us. And again, lots and lots of work has gone into that, and that ties in with the ADP because obviously activity links with money. So those 2 things go hand in hand. And again, it's in draft. We are, it's a very live conversation with Scottish Government. It's a lot of backwards and forwards about what we think we can do for what amount of money, and then they tell us if that's acceptable or not. So that is an ongoing discussion. Really, really tricky. And no matter what the final plan is, we know it will be a challenge, but it's a really important thing for us to look at. So we had a really good, robust discussion about that at the board meeting on Tuesday as well. And again, more of that will come through. So we have a finance committee that looks at that in more detail, and they will be scrutinising that line by line as things develop. And then 2 kind of more optimistic things that we looked at in the board. So we, as a board, approved a refresh of our strategic plan. So you'll all be familiar with the strategic plan for NHS Highland, which is called Together We Care. It was a fantastic piece of work. It pulled in community voices, patient voices, third sector voices, other stakeholders, and laid out across all of our services what we want to achieve in NHS Highland. It was really, really ambitious. That would have been due to be refreshed, I think, in 2026 anyway, but we've decided to accelerate that programme of work. There's lots of different reasons. There's things in the system that have changed, things nationally that have shifted, and we really felt that now was a time to give it a bit of a refresh, not least of all to increase the focus on population health. So the Scottish Government are undertaking a huge amount of work at the moment around renewal of the NHS and what our focus needs to be. And part of that will be publishing a population health framework. So we feel really optimistic that the work that we want to do around refreshing our strategy and the work that we want to do around population health aligns really nicely with what we're seeing from Scottish Government and the plans and the frameworks that they're producing too. So it won't take away anything from Together We Care, it really will build on that. It will be a refreshed strategy. And as part of that, the board also approved the creation of a new committee. So it's been probably a long time since we had a new committee, a new governance committee of the board. So we have approved a population health and strategy committee whose sole job it will be to look at refreshing the strategy, how we develop the strategy, and how we align ourselves to that population health agenda in a way that really makes a difference for our communities. So it's obviously, it's at the very early stages now, and there'll be lots more to follow, but I think it was a really important and positive step that the board did that on Tuesday. And lastly, sort of linked to that, we had a conversation about the Community Empowerment Act. So every year we have to submit an annual report where we report back into Scottish Government about formal community empowerment requests, so things like asset transfer requests, participation requests, and that's quite a formal sort of yes or no report. You know, how many of you did you do it, yes or no? But as a board, we've been talking about community empowerment more broadly and in its truest sense. So the week before the board meeting, we'd had a great development session led by some of the senior leaders in our public health team, where we had a really, really rich conversation about community empowerment and what does it mean in the NHS and how do we embody that, not just through those formal requests like asset transfers, but in the way that we do our work. And that will very much be aligned to how we do our refreshed strategy. So we had a really good conversation about it. And when we took the formal report through the board on Tuesday, we set ourselves a bit of a challenge so that when we have to bring that annual report again in a year's time, how do we make it more meaningful? So how do we report on the things that we have to report on, but actually bulk it out and add meaning to it and consider how we've done more than just what the report requires? And it links to things like our anchor organisation strategy as well. So we're going to go away and have a real think about how we pull all those different strands together and make it more meaningful. And that will be work that takes place over the next 12 months. So those are just a few highlights. As I said, you can watch the whole meeting or bits of the meeting on our website. And I'll bring you another update again after our next board meeting. Thanks.